is the most common mutation associated with gastric cancer? Some more answers? Yes, the answer is E. cadherin. Now, I want to tell one thing about this question. I asked you the most common mutation, and you tell E. cadherin. But you remember, E. cadherin is a protein. It is not a gene, and you cannot have mutation in E. cadherin. You might get such questions in your NEET MD examination where you might have such contradictions or like controversial questions. So you have to use your brain in such questions. Okay. E-cadherin is a glycoprotein. It is a transmembrane glycoprotein. It is an adherence junctions. You remember desmosomes, adherence junctions, hemidesmosomes? Yes. E-cadherin, the loss of E-cadherin mainly happens due to CDH1 mutation. Yes. Actually, the gene is CDH1, because of which there is loss of E-cadherin and ultimately the lesion happens. Rest all P53, P10, RB, these are all gene, but E-cadherin is actually a protein. Let's go to the next question. Question 3. In the above patient, the biopsy revealed neoplastic cells which contained apical mucin vacuoles with abundant mucin in the gland lumina. Which of the following mutation is strongly associated with this histological subtype? Before I ask the answer, I want to tell you, I hope you know that there are two types of gastric adenocarcinoma. Right? There are two types of gastric adenocarcinoma. Here, which we are talking about, histological subtype, there is actually two. One is, yes, one is diffuse type and the other, yes, the other is intestinal type. So can you tell me about which histological subtype am I talking here? A few more questions. Yes, I'm talking here about intestinal type. In intestinal type, as the name suggests, you get columnar cells, intestinal cells, and at the apical part, you get to see mucin vacuoles. And you get glands in such intestinal adenocarcinomas, you get to see glands. Inside the gland lumina, you'll also get to see abundant mucin. So now answer me this question. Yes, goblet cells. Answer me this question. Yes, the answer is WNT pathway. What happens in adenocarcinoma? There is increased signaling of WNT pathway. And in diffuse type, what it happens? Can anyone answer? In diffuse type of adenocarcinoma, what happens? Yes, yes, CDH1 mutation happens, because of which there is loss of E-cadherin, because of which the cells become discohesive. Now, what is discohesive? The cells do not adhere to each other, and you get to see this very clearly in such cases, in diffuse type of adenocarcinoma. Okay? Now, E-cadherin is also seen in another type of carcinoma. Can anyone tell me that? Loss of E-cadherin is seen in another type of carcinoma. Which? Yes, it is seen in lobular carcinoma of breast. So whenever you get to see that the patient is having gastric cancer because of loss of E-cadherin, you also screen the patient for breast cancer. Okay? Let's go to the next question. Diffuse gastric cancer evoking strong desmoplastic reaction imparts a characteristic leather bottle appearance, which is also known as answer. Okay, now before discussing the answer, I want to tell you about the desmoplastic reaction term. Do you know what does this mean? Desmoplastic reaction. Anyone? What does this term? Yes, it is actually fibrosis. Desmoplastic reaction means growth of fibrous tissue around the disease, mainly in cancer patients, in cancer conditions. Around the tumor, you get to see fibrosis, strong fibrosis. So, that type of fibrosis in gastric wall will lead to leather bottle appearance. Yes, the term is actually Linitis plastica. You all told the right one. But I want you to know the differentials of all other options as well, because these are important questions in your NEET MD examinations. Honeycombing pattern. Can anyone tell me where do we see honeycombing pattern in lungs? In which case? Anyone? Honeycombing pattern. Miliary tuberculosis, yes, might be, but honeycombing pattern is okay. In bronchiectasis, there is bronchular dilatation, and when you see, you get to see the very characteristic honeycombing pattern. Now we have this ground glass appearance. Ground glass appearance has many differentials, and it is very important to know the site before you answer me this ground glass appearance. Okay, this is a very important question for NEET MD examination. You will make all the differentials and keep it in your notebook ready, because ground glass appearance, it comes as a question. Now, cannonball appearance. Where do we see cannonball appearance? Cannonball appearance, not seen in chronic hepatitis B. Cannonball appearance. In which organ? Yes, in METS, in lung metastasis. Cannonball appearance is a very characteristic appearance, and the picture, the X-ray picture, it comes as a question. So all these are very important questions for your NEET MD examination. I hope you make a list of all these patterns and just memorize it by hearted. Okay, let's proceed. Now what I'll be discussing is diagnostic modalities, staging modalities, and spread of gastric adenocarcinoma. Let's talk about a case history. Think that a patient has come in your OPD. How will you proceed with the patient? Okay, 50-year-old male from Japan presented with persistent nausea for 5 years with occasional vomiting. He was having dyspepsia and was diagnosed 5 years back with chronic gastritis due to H. pylori infection. Now, he has been experiencing weight loss, weakness, fatigue, and his hemoglobin was 9 gram per deciliter. So, this is the basic history. When you get a patient and get this kind of history, how will you proceed? First, we talk about the age. The main age group in which gastric adenocarcinoma might happen. Anyone? Mean age group where gastric adenocarcinoma might happen. Yes, it is 50 to 60 years. The mean age is 55 years. So the first age has been discussed. Now next is male. In each and every term of a question, you get to see hints. The examiner will give you so many hints that you'll ultimately come to a conclusion. And these type of questions are these are coming nowadays in your examinations. All are clinically oriented. So next is male. Can you tell me what is the male is to female preponderance in gastric adenocarcinoma? Some more? I need some more answers. I feel only one person is answering. Male is to female ratio. Yes, it is 2:1. So here again we get a male. So it is highly likely that this person might have gastric adenocarcinoma. But before deciding and telling the patient that, oh my God, you have gastric adenocarcinoma, we need to rule out some differentials as well, right? So just proceed. Next word is Japan. It means from where the person is belonging. Why did I mention Japan? And why the disease is most commonly seen, highest incidence is seen in Japan? Yes, smoked food. These people consume lots and lots of smoked fish. That's why the highest incidence all over the world of gastric adenocarcinoma is in Japan. Next, the most important term is the patient has been experiencing occasional vomiting since 5 years. Vomiting. Now you know we have two types of vomiting, projectile and non-projectile. Right? Can anyone tell me where we get? You know the difference, right? Projectile means when high amount of pressure is developed in your tract, it comes out. It goes to a distance and it falls over there. And non-projectile is it just comes out of your mouth and it just spreads all over your clothes. It spoils your clothes and it becomes very messy. Here we'll get non-projectile vomiting. Here, if the patient, in later cases, if the patient develops gastric outlet obstruction, the patient might have projectile vomiting when large amount of pressure is developed. But most commonly in gastric outlet obstruction, we get non-projectile vomiting. But we'll be getting blood-colored vomiters. That is a very important thing. Okay, hematemesis might be seen. The next line which is important here, the patient was diagnosed 5 years back with chronic gastritis due to H. pylori infection. Yes, severe gastritis is a very important term that has been mentioned here. We know about the risk factors. We know about the precursor lesions of gastric adenocarcinoma. And this H. pylori infection is a very important risk factor for gastric adenocarcinoma. Can anyone tell me what are the precursor lesions for gastric adenocarcinoma? One or two, just one or two. Precursor lesions. Yes, Barrett's. What metaplasia? Metaplasia is right. What kind of metaplasia? Yes, intestinal metaplasia, atrophic gastritis, pernicious anemia. These are very important precursor lesions of gastric adenocarcinoma. Now the next line, he has been experiencing weight loss. Weight loss is a very important term to make carcinoma as one of the differentials. Yes, cachexia, weight loss, significant weight loss. Can anyone tell me what is significant weight loss? When do we call it significant weight loss? Yes, yes. More than 10% of body, yes, loosening of clothes. Significant weight loss, whenever you see the patient is not dieting, the patient is consuming normal amount of food, which he had been consuming earlier also. But suddenly, in 1 month, he has reduced to like more than 10% weight loss has happened to this person. His clothes are getting loosened. So that is a significant weight loss. And in those cases, you have to keep carcinoma as one of the differentials. Now, next one is hemoglobin. Screen is not visible. 1 second. It is visible, right? Okay. Okay. Now the next one is his hemoglobin is 9 gram per deciliter. What? Yes, hemoglobin might be due to melena, might be due to hematemesis, might be due to ongoing bleeding, which might not come out of your body, just bleeding is happening. So anemia is a very important feature in carcinoma conditions. Okay. So after getting the history, we will think in our mind of some of the differentials. So the differentials might be the patient is having persistent H. pylori infection, the patient might have GERD, the patient might also have NSAIDs, and lastly, out of everything, we'll keep carcinoma at the base. We don't keep cancer at the top of every differential. Okay, carcinoma has to be when we rule out all other differentials, it has to be at the bottom. Okay. Now, persistent H. pylori infection is a very important, likely differential. It might happen in this case. So, to differentiate between persistent H. pylori infection and carcinoma, we will be doing endoscopy in future slides. I'll be discussing with you that. For GERD, the patient needs to be a smoker. The patient has to be obese. And Japan, 50-year-old male, most likely the patient might not have GERD. NSAID use, we will ask the patient if he has any history of NSAID use. Here in the history, we don't have any NSAID use. So this one is also ruled out. So we have two important differentials in our mind, which can be persistent H. pylori infection and gastric adenocarcinoma. Now, when we do an endoscopy, we take out a sample from our stomach. Okay, we do biopsy. To rule out persistent H. pylori infection, what do we do? Which stain do we use? Answer? Yes, yes. Wharton. Wharton stain is used, and then we rule out H. pylori infection. So after going through all the history, after clearing out all the differentials, after giving out all the first line investigations, now we proceed to the invasive investigations. What are the invasive investigations? We go for endoscopy. Endoscopy is a very important investigation. Barium studies we used to go through, but nowadays it is not done so much. Can anyone tell me what kind of appearance is seen in esophageal carcinoma in barium studies? Yes, some more? I need some more answers. Red velvet barium studies. Where do we see what do we see in barium studies? Okay, this is a very important question. You find it out, and this question comes as with an X-ray in your NEET MD examination. Okay, not ulcer. Barium studies, you don't get to see ulcer. Ulcer you'll be seeing in endoscopy, right? In barium studies, it is actually, I'll show you in the next slides how the barium studies actually look like. Now, in this case, we have performed endoscopy, and endoscopic biopsy was performed. And in biopsy, we get to see a reddish hue, surface ulceration. Okay. And from that particular area, we take biopsy. We don't take biopsy from the normal area. We take biopsy where we think that this might be the tumor area. Okay. Now, after taking biopsy, we'll get to see most likely these two types of microscopic features where we need to decide which type of gastric adenocarcinoma this is. On the left hand side, we get to see intestinal type of gastric adenocarcinoma microscopic picture. I told you earlier, in intestinal type, we get to see columnar cells. Here, I hope you're seeing my cursor moving. Rat tail appearance, yes. Bird beak appearance is also there. Okay. Now, in this intestinal type, you get to see columnar cells. See, columnar cells are seen. These are the glands. These are the glands. Glands. Okay. Now, in the columnar cells, in the apical part, you get to see white clear space. What are these? What are these? Round, clear. Yes, mucin vacuoles. Yes, mucin vacuoles are seen. So, in the first one or two questions, we discussed about apical mucin vacuoles. Gland lumina is filled with mucin. It is seen in this type of intestinal type of gastric adenocarcinoma. Now, can anyone tell me what are the special stains for mucin? How do we decide? On H&E staining, we don't decide that these are mucin. We need to do some special stains. Some more. Elchian is right. Yes, mucicarmine. Yes, pass. Even colloidal iron is also done. Okay. What is mucin? What is mucin? Yes, these are glycoproteins. Yes. Now on the right hand side, we get to see diffuse type. In diffuse type, what happens? You remember how the diffuse type developed? There was loss of function mutation in CDH1 gene, which led to loss of E-cadherin. E-cadherin is a very important factor for the cells to adhere to each other. Now, since E-cadherin is not there, the cells will be discohesive. Individual cells will be able to see. Yes, non-cohesive cells are seen. Individual cells can be appreciated here. So here, no glands will be formed. Because to form a gland, the cells need to adhere to each other. Right? To form a group, you need to have bonding with each other. If you don't have bonding, you'll be standing alone. Right? So in these cells, you get to see individual cells. And why the signet ring appearances are seen? Why the signet ring cells are seen? What happens to the mucin in this type? Why the nucleus is pushed? Yes, this mucin, it gets accumulated in the cytoplasm and it takes so much space, it pushes the nucleus to the periphery. Can you appreciate these clear cells, which are actually white in appearance, nice round white in appearance? These cells, they have this very Pitchkawa nucleus pushed to the periphery, elongated. The nucleus is not round or something like that. Okay? These are signet ring cells. Yes, the nucleus is pushed to the periphery. In diffuse type, we get to see signet ring cells. Now, always we don't get to see ulceration. Always we don't get to see a reddish hue. Some other findings are also seen in endoscopy. You might get absence of rugal folds, like in cases of Linitis plastica. Remember, they become like leather bottle appearance. Fibrosis happens. When fibrosis happens, you won't get to see rugal folds. Then you have exopetic appearance. Always you don't get to see ulceration. Some masses might be polypoidal, some masses might be excavated. So exopetic appearance might also be seen. Okay. So these are the types ma'am discussed with you in the previous class. You get to see protruding type. Protruding type is actually exopetic growth. You get a polypoidal growth. Next few are superficial, flat, depressed, and excavated type. Excavated type is into the gastric wall. You get to see the lesion is inside the gastric wall, and most commonly perforation happens in excavated type because it goes inside the gastric wall. Now we have done endoscopy. We need to take out biopsies. But do we take only one biopsy and come out? Will it be useful for us just to take one biopsy and come out? We need to do so many studies. So we take out at least 7 tumor biopsies, and one of them need to be evaluated for H. pylori infection if the patient is having persistent H. pylori infection or not. Next, we go for histology to identify. First, we need to identify atypical cells are present or not. Next, we need to differentiate. If atypical cells are present, we need to differentiate the two types, which type it is actually. Next, we need to understand microsatellite instability, HER2/neu. What is microsatellite instability? What is actually microsatellite? Do you know the term? Microsatellite. Microsatellite, these are gene nucleotide sequences. Yes. In microsatellite, we have 1 to 9 nucleotides. In macrosatellite, we have more than it happens. We get to see hypermutable phenotype. What is hypermutable phenotype? Hypermutable phenotype means they are very highly prone to mutation. So microsatellite instability, these are important. HER2/neu is important because targeted chemotherapy trastuzumab will be using for these patients. So a patient will be having, two patients will be having gastric adenocarcinoma, but one might be having for CDH1, the other might be having for WNT pathway. So they are different. So we need to give targeted chemotherapy. For these reasons, we need to do further studies, and this line is particularly important for that. Now we take biopsies. When the patient is having ongoing bleeding, we don't take biopsy in such cases. When the patient is prone to bleeding, has a risk of bleeding, we don't take biopsy in such cases. What do we do in such cases? We do brush cytology instead of taking 7 biopsies. In cytology, screen is not visible again. Can anyone tell me if my screen is visible or not? Okay. Now in cytology, we get to see again 2 types, intestinal type and diffuse type. The basic concept is still the same. In intestinal, on the left hand side, you get a compact picture. Why? E. cadherin is still present here. Hence, you get to see a compact picture. The cytoplasm is not easily appreciated in such cells. You only get to see the nuclear appearances of such cells. And in diffuse type, you get to see each cell, individual cell is seen. This cohesive pattern is very clearly seen in such cells in cytology. Okay, so this is how you differentiate in cytology. Previous slide. Another one. This one. You want me to discuss it? I've discussed about this. Trastuzumab therapy for HER2/neu. You'll get this particular chemotherapeutic drug in your pharma. Yes, HER2/neu. Okay. Now cytology. In cytology, we get these two type of pictures. Okay. Intestinal will give you a compact picture. Diffuse will give you individual cells, very clearly seen. Next, we go for barium studies. We don't do it, but I have included it just to show you the filling defects. Barium studies we do. These are the types of barium studies. In Linitis plastica, typical leather bottle appearance. You see, stomach is not appreciated. It becomes like straight, pipe-like. Okay, it becomes straight. Fibrosis happens in the gastric wall. Most commonly, Linitis plastica is seen in diffuse type of gastric adenocarcinoma. Why? Because diffuse type is an infiltrative pattern. It shows an infiltrative pattern. It will move into the gastric wall, and lots and lots of desmoplastic reaction is seen in such cases. The next one is malignant gastric ulcer. In malignant gastric ulcer, you get this sign. Biconvex meniscus is seen. Okay? Biconvex meniscus. And in this benign gastric ulcer, you get to see this smooth margins. It is a nice one. Smooth margins are seen. But in malignant, you get to see rough sides. Okay. Now this is the gastric ulcer gross specimen that you can see in our department. Now when you'll be asked to write a short note on morphology, you will be writing gross and microscopic features, both. Don't just write microscopic pictures and come out. You'll have to write gross features, and then you have to proceed to microscopic features, okay? If short note comes. So finally, we have decided that this person is having gastric adenocarcinoma. The points in favor of this is the age, the ethnicity, the history, the clinical examination, and finally the classical upper GI endoscopic features. Now we do just understanding that the patient is having gastric adenocarcinoma won't help us. We need to decide which stage it is. So for staging, we go for endoscopic ultrasound with or without FNAC, CT scan of thorax, abdomen, and pelvis. Why thorax, abdomen, and pelvis? We do it for staging purposes. Then we go for laparoscopy, and then we go for PET scan. Now, in endoscopic ultrasound, it is a newer and more accurate modality for preoperative staging. It is very accurate for determining the depth of invasion and nodal involvement. Now, depth of invasion and nodal involvement. These are this one, slide before staging. These are the points in favor of our diagnosis. How we decided? The patient is 50-year-old patient. We know the age. The patient is residing in Japan. We know the ethnicity. The patient has history of H. pylori infection, a very important risk factor for developing gastric adenocarcinoma. The patient had weight loss. Weight loss is a very important history to keep cancer as one of the differentials. The patient is having low hemoglobin. The patient is having classical upper GI endoscopic features we discussed earlier, right? So finally, we come to the conclusion that the patient is having gastric adenocarcinoma. So we use these modalities for staging. Now, in this slide, I wanted to talk about the depth of invasion and nodal involvement. The depth of invasion and nodal involvement are very important prognostic markers. These, on the basis of these, we decide what is the prognosis. If the prognosis is poor, will we go for surgery for that patient? Yes, that will be useless, right? So depth of invasion, we need to decide beforehand, before operating on that patient. We need to decide what is the depth of invasion so that we can understand what is the prognosis of that patient. The next one is CT scan. CT scan we basically use to stage the patient. We never use to diagnose the disease in that patient. Okay, CT scan we go for staging, for assessing the depth of invasion, for nodal involvement. Also to assess the extent of metastasis. Ascitic fluid should be aspirated to look for malignant cells, and liver lesions can be biopsied on CT scan. Now laparoscopy. Laparoscopy is a very invasive technique, so we prefer endoscopic ultrasound mostly. The only advantage in laparoscopy is we get to visualize directly the peritoneum, the lymph node, the liver, any kind of mets if happening over there, we get to see directly. Now we do the staging. The staging has to be done as per TNM staging system of AJCC. This is the staging of adenocarcinoma. Most of the GI tract staging will be based on this one. TX is tumor cannot be assessed. T0, no evidence of primary tumor. TIS, tumor in situ, is high-grade dysplasia. Now, every one of you know, I hope every one of you knows that what is dysplasia. Dysplasia, can anyone write please? What is dysplasia? And why it is important, why it has been included in TNM staging? Yes, disordered growth. Disordered growth. Dysplasia is a very important pre-malignant condition. Disordered growth, yes. So dysplasia is a very important pre-malignant condition and hence it has been included in the TNM staging. The next one is T1. The tumor invades the lamina propria, muscularis mucosa or submucosa. Now again T1 will be divided into A and B. A will include lamina propria and muscularis mucosa. B will include the submucosa. T2, it invades the muscularis propria, goes much lower. T3, it penetrates the serosa. And T4, it goes to the visceral peritoneum. So again, 4A, 4B, it will go to the visceral peritoneum, 4A. And 4B, it will invade the adjacent structures. Now the lymph nodes. Lymph nodes again the same way. NX is regional lymph nodes cannot be assessed. N0, no regional lymph node metastasis. N1 will be 1 to 2 regional lymph node. N2 will include 3 to 6. Remember the factor. N2, 3 to 6. N3 is more than 7, but more than 7 is a huge number. So we divide it again into 3A, 3B. 3A is 7 to 15. 3B is more than 16. Now metastasis M0, M1. Now these are the diagrams. Just to clear out your concept, if you can draw it in your exam, I don't think in your exam TNM staging will come, but if it comes, draw these diagrams for extra marks. Okay? T1A, see, it is just confined into the mucosa. It may also proceed to muscularis mucosa, but if it goes into the submucosa, that will be termed as T1B. T2, it goes much beyond that. It reaches the muscularis propria. T3, it goes into the serosa. T4A, it has come out of the gastric wall. It has come out, but it is limited over here. T4B, it is invading the other structures as well. Now, modes of spread. Modes of spread is a very important question in terms of your neoplasia chapter and in terms of gastric cancer. Your modes of spread might come as a 10-mark question or even a short note. It is a very important question even in your future, not just in path, but in future surgery as well. Okay. Modes of spread, we have direct spread, we have lymphatic spread, we have blood-borne metastasis and transperitoneal spread. Indirect spread, it will be going via the submucosa. It will be penetrating all the layers and it will going to the surrounding organs such as pancreas, liver, and colon. Now, before going into the lymphatic spread, we need to remember the lymphatic drainage, not just of stomach, of whatever structure you are studying, of whatever organ you are studying. You need to know the lymphatic drainage of that organ. In stomach, we have the very important structure, that is the celiac node. In celiac node, we have the drainage from the left gastric node and the right gastric node, which drains the lesser curvature. And along the greater curvature, we have three nodes. These are pancreaticosplenic node, right gastroepiploic node, and pyloric node. Okay? Now in the lymphatic spread is a very important spread for any kind of cancer. It spreads fast. Lymphatic spread and blood-borne metastasis, these are very important. Okay? Periumbilical lymph nodes are seen. This is a very important question for your NEET MD examination. Sister Mary Joseph nodule, that is seen in your umbilical area. Okay, this black one is your nodule. Periumbilical lymph nodes, Sister Mary Joseph nodule is a very important question. MCQ. Now we had left supraclavicular lymph nodes and left axillary lymph node. Why did I mention left? I could have written supraclavicular lymph nodes. I could have written axillary lymph node. Why did I only write left? Yes, stomach is on the left side and most of the lymphatic drainage happens on the left pathway, right? So the term that we use for left supraclavicular node is Virchow node. Trocheus sign. Trocheus sign, we also get to see another term like Trocheus. Trocheus sign is also seen. Can anyone tell me what is Trocheus sign? This is an important question. You will be asked in your clinical examination. Yes, hypocalcemia. And just know how do we do the test, okay? How do we put the BP cuff on and what happens? Yes, carpopedal spasm. Yes, just know the process, okay? This comes as a question. Next, we have blood-borne metastasis. Spread also happens via invasion of blood vessel walls, which is termed as vasculitis carcinomatosa. Most frequent sites of distant metastasis are liver, peritoneum, lung, adrenal gland, and ovary. Now we have transperitoneal spread. The spelling is wrong. Transperitoneal spread. Transperitoneal spread in gastric cancer is a very important type of spread. In the whole of the peritoneum, we get to see peritoneal seedlings. Yes, it is a sign that is seen in tetanus. Yes. Peritoneal seedlings will be seen all over the peritoneum. Okay, it can be seen anywhere in the peritoneal cavity. You know the term skip metastasis? Skip metastasis. Skip metastasis is like adjacent structures are present, okay? But it won't happen in the nearby organs. Like this term, the last line, which is Krukenberg tumor. Our gastric cancer is happening in the stomach, right? Cancer is happening in the stomach, but we get to see bilateral ovarian masses in a different. Ovary is a completely different organ, right? It is nowhere related to the GI tract. It has no relation with lymphatic drainage, no relation with blood vessels. But suddenly you're getting to see a mets in your ovary. Those are termed as skip metastasis. Okay. Now, these transperitoneal spread, they will present as ascites. Let me tell you a case. A patient has come with fluid in her stomach, ascites. She came into the medicine department. You did the peritoneal tapping. fluid has been taken out, fluid has been sent for cytology. Now you do ultrasound. And in ultrasound, you get to see ovarian masses. You get to see bilateral ovarian masses. So you shift the patient to gynae. But when they proceed with investigations, they find out that the primary tumor is actually in the stomach. So this is a very interesting case, and that is why you need to know why metastasis, from where metastasis can happen, how many types of metastasis are present in a particular type of cancer. Krukenberg tumor is such an important and interesting case where you get to see ascites in a female patient with bilateral ovarian masses, and the patient is ultimately diagnosed with gastric cancer. So this is a very important case. I hope you find a case like that in your future. Now, this is a homework for you. In your previous classes, you have been discussed with the difference between benign ulcer and malignant ulcer. So I've written the parameters. You just fill in each of the sites, and in the next class, you tell your ma'am that you have done your homework. Okay? So engage in these kind of work so that you know what to study and what not to study. This gastric cancer is a very important topic for MCQ purpose, and this modes of spread is a very important topic in terms of your academic papers like 10-mark question or short note. Okay? And in the modes of spread, you get to see this one-liners, Virchow node, Krukenberg tumor, Sister Mary Joseph nodule. These might come in your MD examination, but nowadays mostly clinically oriented questions are coming. Yes, I'll be showing. Yes, the CT scan slide I'll be showing you. Mostly clinically oriented questions are coming, so prepare yourself for that also. Just the one-liners won't help you. You need to know the risk factors, the etiopathogenesis, so that you can come to the conclusion before even reading the options. Once you read the options, it will be clear to you. Just don't read the options before coming to a conclusion. Okay? Otherwise, it will confuse you more. This is the CT scan slide. What do you want to know about it? Are you writing it down? Don't write it down. These are just points which I pick up from each of the topics so that I remember what I need to discuss with you. This is not a short note. You cannot present this PPT as your exam answer. Spread slide? What is spread slide? Which one? Which slide? The CT scan. This one. You will need to draw these diagrams if question comes on gastric adenocarcinoma. Don't skip this part. This is very important. You know the types, right? Type 1, type 2A, type 2B, type 2C, and type 3. Okay? Remember, draw these diagrams. Just one-liner diagrams will be enough. You don't need to do shade and everything. Okay? So, let's close this session. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.